My name is Jason and this is Just Watches. Okay, today we have a watch that was gifted by a friend of the channel for review. You know who you are and thank you so much. This is a really cool Timex with a rare combination of complications at this price point. We have a GMT and a chronograph. Now before we get to the review, if you're enjoying the contents of this channel, I invite you to subscribe, and if you like the contents of this individual video, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much. This watch is currently available on the Timex website in 3 colorways for a price of $219. But with Timex, it's always a good idea to wait until they have a sale. You can usually score 15 to 25% off if you're patient. The case is 40 millimeters in diameter by 46 millimeters lug to lug. It's 12 millimeters thick and then has an 18 millimeter lug width opening. Now the case is very angular and mostly high polish, with brushing on the top and bottom where the case angles down into the hooded lugs. There is a chamfer that runs along the top of the mid case, and then the mid case angles inward. Off wrist, the watch looks somewhat thick, but it's really only 12 millimeters tall, and it looks much thinner when worn. This watch shape is really fun, and I think it looks great. The stock silicone strap flares out to 20 millimeters before tapering down to 18 at the signed high polish pin and buckle. One of the keepers and the back of both straps are branded with Q Timex. The silicone is very comfortable, and there are extra holes for airflow. I think this is a really nice strap actually, so you probably won't need to switch it out, but keep in mind if you do, the lug width is only 18 millimeters, so you will probably have trouble finding a strap that kind of flares out to line up with the case like the stock one does. The screw-down caseback has the very cool Timex battery hatch. This makes changing out the battery on this watch extremely simple. All you need is a flathead screwdriver and you will get direct access to the battery. Now this watch is only 50 meters water resistant. I think 100 would be really nice, but you often see chronographs with that lower water resistance. Now the exact movement used is not specified, however if I had to guess it's probably accurate to plus or minus 20 seconds a month and has an approximate battery life of 3 years depending on how much the chronograph is used. We have some nice features here with the chronograph, date, and the 12-hour GMT hand. Now a 12-hour GMT hand goes around the dial twice per day, so I actually think that somewhat justifies the 24-hour sub-register at 12. It's a complication I usually don't like. For an example on how that GMT hand works, you'll note the time here is about 3:37 and the GMT hand is 2 hours ahead, showing Pacific and Central Time respectively. Now you can also rotate the bezel to add a third time zone. This is a really interesting movement. I would love to see Timex add even more complications such as a perpetual calendar and moon phase to this and make some sort of grand complication Timex. The 5mm push-pull crown is signed with a Q and then has a very interesting rubber knurling. This gives both an interesting appearance and also adds a ton of grip. It's a pretty clever feature I haven't seen done before. Now you also have the pushers for the chronograph flanking the crown. They stick out quite far, but they operate with a fairly satisfying click, especially for a quartz chronograph. The flat mineral crystal is almost a full millimeter proud of the bezel and has a large facet around the edge that catches light and causes some distortions. The shape of the crystal is great on this one. I just wish it was sapphire. Charge $20 more for this watch and give us a sapphire crystal Timex. We would all love that. The 12-hour friction bezel is bidirectional, which makes sense for this style of watch with the GMT. Timex does a good job on their friction bezels. While it isn't hard to turn, it does seem to stay put. The insert is aluminum, and then we do have a Lume pip at 12. Now, what this bezel is going to help you do is track a third time zone if you so desire. The dial has a lot going on. Starting at the white chapter ring, we have markings for each of the minutes, and then the indices are actually cut into the chapter ring, which is a really cool detail. Speaking of those indices, we have a triangle 12 with rectangles at 3, 6, and 9, and circles for the remaining positions. These are all filled with lume and edged in black. Next, we have a 24-hour sub-register, Q Timex chronograph, the running seconds, and the chronograph minutes at 12, 3, 6, and 9, respectively. The date is nicely tucked away at 4:30. Everything is nicely spaced out. I think the Q is a touch big. I would have shrunk that down a bit, but I do like the overall contrast of the stark white dial against all of these black elements. The hour and minute hands are black. We have a very cool hour hand with a T for Timex, and then a very skinny minute hand. Both are filled with lume. Then we have the 12-hour GMT hand, which is red with a lumed black triangle. The chronograph seconds has a solid black counterbalance with a lumed lollipop towards the tip. Then of course we have small hands on each of the sub-registers. Now this handset is mostly great. The hour hand, GMT hand, and chronograph seconds hands are all easy to distinguish and of the the appropriate length, but this minute hand just feels out of place. It's a touch short and also really skinny. For some reason, it just looks off to me. Now, the lume on this Timex is actually not bad. This is usually a weak point for the brand, but I was surprised by this one. It's not on the level of Seiko lume or anything, but it's some of the best Timex lume I've ever seen. And here's the watch on my 6 3/4 inch wrist. As you can see, it's a nice size, which I think will look great on a wide variety of wrist sizes. It also wears quite snug to the wrist, and when worn does not look too thick. As for pros and cons, starting with the pros, well, this is a nice set of complications in a single watch. If you're looking for just one watch and you want a lot of features, you have almost all your bases covered with this one. You have the date, multiple time zones, and a chronograph. Second, I love the shape of the case and how comfortable it wears on the stock strap. Third, I love the battery hatch. Even though I can change the battery on a watch, this makes it so much easier and foolproof. As for cons, the lack of a sapphire crystal is a big one. Timex does use sapphire crystals on some of their watches, but I wish they used them more often and just charge slightly more. Second, the minute hand is just too short and too thin for me. Perhaps I'm a bit too sensitive on this point, but it really just bothers me and kind of stands out. Finally, I would love to see them ditch the 24-hour sub-register for chronograph hours. I think it would be a more useful complication overall. As for comparables on this watch, that's a bit tricky. You can find a GMT plus a chronograph in luxury watches from Omega and Longines, but I'm not familiar with a watch with the same set of complications around the $200 price point. If you are, please let me know in the comment section below. So there you have it, the Q Timex 3 time zone chronograph. What do you think about this watch? Let me know in the comment section below. As always, if you're enjoying the contents of this channel, I invite you to subscribe. And if you like the contents of this individual video, please give it a thumbs up. That's all for this time. My name is Jason, and you've been watching Just Watches.